Hey there, I'm Steve, the technical support lead here at Whole Latte Love, and today we're going to be going over how to properly clean and make adjustments to your Ceado E5 or E6 series grinder. Whether you're using it for the first time or you've owned it for years, this information will always be helpful for maintaining your grinder. I'm going to be demonstrating on an E5 SD, but the process is going to be the same on the E5P, E5 Pro, E6P, and E6P with filter burrs. I'll point out any model-specific differences as we go. Your grinder doesn't ship dialed in from the manufacturer, and the numbers on the adjustment collar won't be useful as a reference point until we've gone through the process of zeroing out the burrs. So let's do that first. Before putting coffee in, start the grinder and adjust the grind finer by turning the grind collar counterclockwise. On the E5 SD, pressing the grinding button will run the motor continuously. On the E5P and the E5 Pro, the grind button has to be held in order for the motor to keep running. A second person can help hold the button while making adjustments to make it easier. On the E6P, it may help to program a longer dosing time in order to have the burrs run for longer. Once you've turned it far enough, you'll hear the burrs chirp together, then you can back off slightly. Now that the grinder is zeroed, we know where the finest setting is, and you can use the numbers on the adjustment collar as a reference point for your grind setting. On the outer edge of the adjustment collar, there's a screw you can use to lock the adjustment collar in so that you can't make more than one full turn. This is a great way to keep you from losing your grinding range. Just a note, Ceado's used a few different versions of these collars over the years. Some of them have that screw, some have a tab under the collar that will do that, and some don't have that at all, so it may be different on yours. A quick note on adjusting the grind, always run the grinder when making adjustments. When adjusting finer, this prevents damage to the burrs and actively clears coffee out of the grinding chamber that might otherwise cause the burrs to seize up. It's also important to run the grinder when adjusting more coarse in order to clear out any coffee that might still be at your previous grind size. If the grinder's clogged, the whole grinder will stall. If you look inside the burr chamber, you'll see the burrs aren't spinning even though the grinder's activated. You'll also hear a very low hum of the motor trying to run. If you're using an E6P, you'll also see the timer running even though the grinder isn't running. Clogs are most often caused by coffee becoming stuck between the burrs, but may also be caused by other small stones or objects that are occasionally found in whole bean coffee. The quickest way to get rid of a minor clog is to adjust the grinder to a coarser setting while trying to run the grinder. This will move the burrs further apart so the burrs have space to spin. Once the grinder unclogs, be sure to slowly make adjustments back to your desired setting. Adjusting too fast can result in reclogging. If this doesn't clear the clog, then a more in-depth cleaning is needed, which we'll go over next. All right, let's get into a deep clean on this grinder. First thing we want to do before we get into it is unplug the grinder. Safety first here. Tools we're going to be using. We got a Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to be using this for most of getting this disassembled. I do also have a flathead screwdriver here. Not important to have for everything that we're doing, but it is good if we want to really get into it. So I'll show you where to use this. I also have a brush just for getting into all the little cracks and crevices, bigger brush for bigger cleanup, and I also have some duster and a vacuum. Optional there, but really nice to have, makes it a little bit easier to do this. All right, let's get into this. So with the E5P here, I'm just gonna have to take this bellows off. If you do have the hopper version, so E5P, E6P, you wanna make sure you get the hopper off. When you do take the hopper off, just make sure you close this tab up here. Next thing we're gonna have to get off is this collar here. This version here, if I turn this, it's gonna stop me from going any further. There's a little tab underneath here. I'll show you that in just a second. If you've got a version where you have this screw on the outside of the collar, you can just unscrew this screw and completely take the collar off without having to remove the collar first. Some versions, you might even be able to spin on the older versions. They added this as a nice way to keep your position. So let's get into here. Phillips head screwdriver, just get these two screws off. And then it'll come right out. So you see on the single dose version here, we've got this little collar here. You can just push that out using your thumbs and set that aside for now. The way that I like to do this, because we need to remove this brass piece here, you're not really going to be able to grab it and turn it and take it out, and the threads are a little sharp, so I don't recommend doing it that way. I usually just flip this upside down and then screw it back in, because you'll see this tab here is what was stopping us from being able to turn it more. So let's get that screwed back in there. One thing that's also important here, we're going the opposite of what you might think to loosen this. It's reverse threaded, so instead of lefty-loosey, we're going to be going righty-tighty on here. And there it goes, comes off right on there. Just unscrew that for now. There is a little bit of lubricant on all of these pieces when you get into here. So I don't recommend, and because it's brass as well, I don't recommend like washing any of this. We're just gonna clear everything off using one of these brushes. So get it into the threads. This one looks pretty clean already. The lubricant that's gonna be in here is gonna be a food safe lubricant. Most of the time we're using Molykote 111. You don't usually need to re-lubricate it, but if you do find that things are really dry in here, you can add a little bit to the threads there. This piece here comes right on out, and you'll see that's actually our burr carrier for the upper burr. It just slides out. When you see this little tab here, goes right into this area here. So pull that right on out. Again, just brushing these things off, making sure that everything is nice and clean. The stiffer the bristle brush, the easier it'll be to get into these little screws and everything, but the big important part are the burr teeth here. Inside here, we're also going to see, this is just a spring for when it compresses, when the top burr compresses down. Just put that off to the side. It should look wavy like this. That is what it is designed to look like. Last piece in here before we get to the lower burr area is this metal ring. On the E5 SD, this ring looks like this. It's a little bit bigger. On the E5P and the E6P, it's a little bit thinner. Reason for that, the E5 SD is made for single dosing, so this just takes a little bit of the area out of the grinding chamber. All right, but we're gonna, again, just give everything a nice brush off. This is a lot of lubricant on it, so it does stick. A lot of coffee does stick to it. This here isn't super important to be clean. It's not going to clog anything up, but I like everything to be clean when I get in here. Might as well do it. All right. Now we're going to be looking inside of the grinding chamber here. So on this SD, it looks pretty good. If you had a lot of buildup in here, that's where the vacuum comes in handy. So we just pull this up here, this going, get this tube right down in here and start it up. All right, now that we've got the burr chamber vacuumed out, we can get a little bit deeper in here. So if we look inside, we've got 3 screws that hold this bottom burr in. That's actually why I have the flathead here. So this extra screwdriver would be here to just brace the burrs so that they don't spin when I'm trying to unscrew these screws. You see if I remove this, it's just kind of all over the place. Third one there. Now that we have those 3 screws out of there, we can get the bottom burr off. A lot of the times you can just reach in and kind of grab it, but it is a tight space. I usually use like a pick or just anything. You can use the screwdrivers too, just to kind of get it pulled out. So I get it underneath there, I'll hold some tension and just work your way around until it releases from there. There we go. So there's our burr. Give this just a quick brush off. Again, we're just making sure mostly that the teeth are cleaned off there. Set that aside. you look down in there, you'll see that there is some grinds that even with vacuuming didn't come out. Those were underneath the burr. So it's good to go under there and just, again, we're gonna try to brush all of that out. I'm pushing everything just towards this chute here because we're gonna take that off next and clear that out as well. All right, now that we've got the inside all cleared out, we can move on to the chute. We go back to our Phillips head. There's 4 screws that we're gonna need to remove. It's gonna be these 2 on the top and then 2 right under where the chute is. There we go. Those 2 are off there. Just make sure we don't lose them when it comes out. There we go. All right, so on the E5 SD and the E6P, there's gonna be some wires going to here because this is a screen or a light, depending on which one it is. Just be careful of the wires. They're not super tight or anything. You can pull it out and let this kind of hang here if you need, but you don't wanna like yank on it. So the last thing to clean in the grinder chamber area is the chute. As I was saying before, I usually push everything towards this area here, and you'll see we've got some grinds just kind of left over in here. This is a good area for like the canned air or an air compressor just to blow all of those out of there. You can still use a vacuum too, or just take a nice like brush and just brush out this area as well. You see this one isn't super compacted and there's nothing covering this area here. If we look at the E5P, E6P, one of the on-demand grinders as opposed to the single dosing grinders, those are gonna have one of these flaps. It's an anti-static device. You can't WDT in one of these grinders, so we wanna have this device here. But one screw, pull that off, and then clear it. You'll see a lot of the times we get a lot of clumping right behind there. All right, back into here. Again, we're gonna look into the chute as well and just clear that out. This one looks pretty clean. Just take this brush into here, clear that on out. Now that we've got the grinder all cleaned up, we just need to put it back together. So let's get into that. First thing is the chute. Make sure that these wires go back into the body of the machine and just put that right up there. I usually start with these top ones. You can start with the bottom ones. Doesn't really matter too much. There's that. And these 2 for the chute. All right, make sure everything's all nice and solid there. Good to go. All right, let's get this bottom burr back in. So we're just gonna drop it into place here and then line the screw holes up. And then I usually like to just get them started. You don't really need to brace them to get them in and started there, and then tighten them down after. Okay, so I've got these mostly snug down, and then I'm gonna grab my flathead screwdriver again. This time we'll go on the other side of this piece and just keep tightening things down. These ones, again, we're just snugging up, and then we'll just make sure that they're not moving or anything, rattling. You can just get these done as tight as you can get them, but you don't need a drill or anything like that. And then, just make sure that they're not wobbling. No movement at all there. Now that the bottom burr is in place, we can get this spacer back in here. Slide that all the way down. Get this spring back on. And then the top burr. Remember, we've got this tab here, lines up with this here. Just slides right into place. All right, last piece we need to get in is this brass threaded ring. This is our adjustment ring. Just gonna pop that on there. This does only go one way. The screw holes, you see these are smaller here, larger here. So those go up to the top. Just a quick tip on getting this seated in properly. You'll wanna get it in place and then turn it clockwise a bit. When it drops into place, you'll hear an audible click. Then you can start tightening it down counterclockwise. It should go in pretty smoothly, so if you feel any resistance, back it off and try again. All right, now back to the video. It is also reverse threaded if we remember from when we took it apart, so we want to go lefty-tighty here. And we're going to use that trick that we used before to get it tightened down most of the way. All right, now that we're most of the way tightened down, I can take these 2 screws out and flip the collar back over. I like to line the tab that keeps us in our range up with this side of the tab on the grinder. So you'll see I've got it here. That's all the way tight, and then I just go a little bit farther until I find those holes inside of there. Get the screws in. And tighten them down. Again, we're not going to want to over tighten these because this collar is plastic, but just hand tight, make sure that it's not wobbling or anything, and then we can make some adjustments here. All right, now that we've got the collar back on, we're going to zero this back out so that we can have it in the right range. I'm going to plug it back in. I'm going to start running the grinder, and then I'm going to start going finer until I hear the burst chirp. Oh, there it is. That's that distinctive noise, so right off of there. So right off of there, now I know that this is my 0 point and I can make adjustments from there. I usually go about 1 number turn, so I was about here, about halfway between 0 and 8. I'm going about halfway between 0 and 1, and that tends to get us into the right range. And then we're all together. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out our support page for more videos like this. Once again, I'm Steve. Have a great day.